oh my God, am I actually going to be falling in love with a knife? Is my future going to be with a knife? If we have children, am I going to give birth to cutlery? Like, this is so weird. What am I signing up for? He's a super soldier. Hey, thank you so much for clicking on the video. My name is Kaylee, and this is Read, Rant, Review, where I read a bunch of silly, goofy books, and I give you a beat-by-beat, chapter-by-chapter breakdown of it. Little friendly, FaceTimey, gossipy sesh about some wild stuff that I've read lately. Today we're continuing our lighthearted utensil romance by Ruth Cardello. It is a 4-book series about World War II super soldiers who get turned into silverware. That's about the quickest summary that I could possibly give you. Today we're going to be talking about book number 3 called Knifed and book number 4 called Serviced. There's a bunch more context. Like I said, I have the 2 previous videos uploaded. I've covered those over the last couple of weeks. So I'll have those like linked below or tagged or whatever somewhere on the screen. Highly recommend you go and watch those before you watch this video. But good Lord, am I having a good time. This is so goofy. And I left you guys on a cliffhanger last Thursday. So, you know, I'm here today to wrap it up, and we're going to finish this great time. And yeah. And just in terms of just channel general news and acknowledgements, after I filmed my video last week, I got my gallbladder taken out. Went to bed that night, woke up at 2:30 a.m. in excruciating pain. Apparently gallbladder surgery is like a outpatient thing. Got that thing taken out of me in like 12 hours and then we were good to go. Crazy world. If you followed me on Instagram, on my gaming channel, or if you were a book bestie, you already knew that though. And if you're not one of those 3 things, then what the heck are you doing? Like I said, if you want to keep up with me, have some behind the scenes, little extra stuff, or watch me post dumb memes, I have my Instagram in the description box below. Or if you want some extra hee ha fun time with Kaylee, I post a weekly gaming video on the channel, again, linked in the description box below. So if you want to hang out anytime, you can find me at one of those other places. Now, before we do get into this book, I do just like as a very general cursory disclaimer, would like to note that while this is a lighthearted utensil romance, and objectively it is pretty lighthearted, we are still dealing with World War II issues. Need I say more than that? We're dealing with people that have obviously suffered from PTSD. There is some just kind of general trauma and like backstory to each of them that led them down the path that they were on to join this like super soldier cell. So objectively, there's some dark stuff that we're going to be kind of glazing over and talking about. I'll try not to talk about any of it too much in depth. But yeah, just, you know, protect your peace. If it starts to get a little too heavy for you, don't worry. I'll catch you in the next one, right? No hard feelings whatsoever. So with that, like I said, I already kind of summarized it, but just in case you need a refresher on where we are in the world or like what exactly is happening in this universe. In book number 1 called Spooned, we had Mercedes, who is a 20-something-year-old living in Rhode Island who bought a set of cutlery at an estate sale, ended up touching one of the spoons and like really just, it was her new favorite spoon. She used it all the time. Eventually ends up doing a little more with the spoon than one would ever expect to do with a spoon. And it turned into a man named Hugh. They fell in love happily ever after. Hugh said, oh my God, the rest of my unit is in that silverware. We have to get them out. Find one of your friends to fall in love with one of the utensils. So she did. She gave a fork to a girl named Cheryl. Cheryl and Jack came out of that. Cheryl found one of the forks, and that was in book number 2 called Forked. The soldier that came out of that was named Jack. Those two were like the leaders of the group, BFFs. Everybody's kind of like hunky-dory in this friend group. And we left on a cliffhanger where Ashley, who's the main female character of this book called Knifed, had picked up one of the knives. And it turns out that this is going to be like the most traumatized, angry, like out of control soldier that she has found and now has this connection to and refuses to give this knife up. So that is where we're opening book number 3 at. All of the friend group are freaking out that she has these feelings for this knife and they don't really know what to do. And so they're like racing to get to her before she can like wake him up out of this like silverware slumber, right? Before it's too late. Okay. So that's where we are. How fun, right? And so in chapter number 1 is just from, his name is Ray. Like I said, Ray's POV. He's the soldier in the knife. His POV, whenever the soldiers are in this silverware state, they are like kind of floating just in like pure darkness, and they can't really feel anything. But they do get like the sensation of the woman that like has chosen them, or that they have chosen, or whatever. So in his case, because he got touched by Ashley, he can like sense her and like feel her yearning and like wanting to be near her, but it's almost like torturous, because whenever she's not touching him, he's back to this like, floating in darkness thing. Really sad, objectively, right? So in chapter 1, it is him in this darkness, realizing that this is hell and wanting to get out. And so he's going to use all of his energy that he can to get out from this darkness. He refuses to give in to this darkness. In chapter number 2, Ashley's POV, she is going to the coffee shop to meet with Cheryl, right? Cheryl found out about her having the knife and was like, oh my God, put that thing back where it came from right now, so help me. Whatever the quote is. Leave that thing in your apartment, go down to the coffee shop by your apartment right freaking now, we have to talk. She says, okay, crazy head. So she did. She left the knife at her apartment. She's going down to the cafe in chapter number 2 to meet with Cheryl and to meet with Greg, who's another guy that's just kind of in the friend group, and he's been floating around in the last couple of books. They're talking. Cheryl's not showing up though. She's not answering her phone, and it's just kind of weird. And she and Greg have a little bit of back and forth, and she ends up spilling to Greg that Hugh is a spoon and that he's like a super soldier. She goes on to tell Greg, Mercedes and Hugh have this inside joke about being inappropriately attracted to silverware. I'm sorry, what? She thinks he's a fork. Hugh? Yeah, it's a fun little fantasy she and Hugh have. She pretends he's a fork and they fuck. That's the strangest fantasy that I've ever heard. You don't even know the half of it. And he cocks his head to one side. Tell me. I hesitate because he looks interested in the topic, but not amused by it. Hugh's the reason Mercedes asked us to research Project Inkwell. Project Inkwell is on the silverware set, there's like a little plaque on it that says Project Inkwell, but that's also the name of the like project that they worked for when they were soldiers that turned them into super soldiers. So when Hugh came out from this, he was like trying to Google it and telling her to like recruit all of her friends to figure out what happened, because he was trying to figure out what happened to his people, right? Anyway, yeah, and he must have heard about Project Inkwell somewhere and loved the idea of it. He pretends to be, or he believes he is, a super soldier from World War II. In which case, this woman was sworn to secrecy by Cheryl. Already, we're in chapter number 2, and she's breasting the breasty code, breaking the bestie code, and telling all these random folks. Yeah, they're friends with Greg, but they're not like super, super tight. She's just yapping. And it pissed me off immediately. I was like, I don't like this woman. Keep secrets, man. Operational security. OPSEC, baby. Shut up. So, as they're talking about this in the coffee shop, in storms in Cheryl with this mystery man, Mercedes, and Hugh. Mystery man being Jack, being her fork that turned into a man, blah, blah, blah. Need I say more? They all come in and they say, Cheryl, or not Cheryl. What's her name? Hello? There's so many characters. Ashley? They rush in and they say, Ashley, come on, we have to go back to your apartment. Which is what they do. They go back up to her apartment, and in chapter 3, we're in Ray's POV. He has successfully willed himself back into human form. He wakes up on a desk. He's disoriented. He has no idea where he is. He has no idea what's happening. He just hears a bunch of voices and weirdness in the rooms kind of around him, and he's feeling really weak and just like angry, and he's just not doing good. Like, he definitely feels like he was drugged or something, and he's very, very disoriented. And as he's getting up and he's trying to kind of sneak around to hear these voices better, he hears that it's Hugh and Jack. Again, they were kind of like the leaders of the unit at the time, kind of the boss guys. And so Ray's like listening through the wall, trying to hear them talk, and they're talking about how they shouldn't wake him up yet, and how he shouldn't be a part of this, and how they need to, essentially what he hears is that they need to kill him. And so he busts out this bedroom, fighting, guns a-blazing. He doesn't have any guns. By guns, I mean fists, like pop, pop, pop. You know what I'm saying? That was cringy. Ew. But you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck off. I'm trying to do this in one take. Can you tell? So he goes out there, busts open the door, starts fighting him. super soldiers. Need I say more? If you haven't been keeping up, that means super strength, instant healing, like can do crazy stuff. Some of them can even like blend in with their surroundings and like camouflage themselves. They've got crazy, they can like stretch and do some weird things. Incredibly powerful people. So the three of these guys just start duking it out in Ashley's apartment, just breaking everything, breaking arms, snapping necks, waking up from having a snapped neck. Like, it's intense. And you got the three women just like screaming bloody murder, just trying to get them to stop. The only thing that gets them to stop is Miss Ashley in a robe, not sure why, busted open and flashes Ray to distract him and to tell him to shut up and to listen. Timeless. It's a timeless trick. I don't know why I would have expected anything else. As he comes to a stop fighting these other two, they're also coming to the realization that he is not doing very hot. He is, again, super agitated, but he's also like kind of clammy, has a fever, a little sweaty. He's feeling off still thinking that they drugged him. And they're saying, no, we did not drug you. However, the situation kind of, again, if you, for some godforsaken reason, you're coming into this blind, or if you need a reminder, when they had gotten turned into the spoons or into the silverware, they were at an award banquet celebrating the end of World War II, celebrating the defeat of Germany. Not an award banquet, but like a celebratory like dinner thingy-majiggy, right? So the whole crew is here. They're all eating, they're having a good time, they're celebrating, they're talking about going out and like, you know, partying up on the town that night, when suddenly Ray came into the room. He said, "I'm so sorry." Huge flash of light. Everybody, that's the last thing anybody remembers. So with that, Hugh and Jack, the reason they did not want to wake up Ray is because they think he had something to do with this flash. They think that Ray had something to do with them being turned into silverware, right? It's kind of alarming. So that's what they were talking about beforehand. That's what Ray was hearing and was like, oh my God, they want to kill me. Not the case. They were just a little worried because they're pretty sure, you know, he's the source of all their problems to begin with. Issue with that also being the fact that before that moment, Ray had a drink with the director of the program, Director Falconio, or it's like Director Falcono or Falconio, had a drink with him, and then all of this other stuff happened. So now that they're thinking about this and they're talking through this all, after he's calmed down, after seeing her yitties, they're realizing, well, maybe he drugged Ray's drink and like Ray was under mind control and did all of this stuff. And that's why he's acting so crazy right now still. And he's like so not doing well because he got poisoned. Like we're dealing with some type of drugging or poisoning or something from this, like this drink. Like we don't really know what to do. So they're able to finally get Ray to like lay down in bed. He's just out of sorts entirely. And they're trying to figure out what the frick do we do now? Like what do we do next? He's about to lose consciousness on the bed, and Ashley sits next to him, and, you know, she's comforting him, and she's telling him, hey, you're safe, it's okay. You know, she's taking off he's in his, like, military, like, regalia, you know, like his, like, full uniform with, like, the bars and the decorations and all dressed and stuff, and so she's taking that all off of him so he can chill, you know, lay in bed and tuck him in and whatnot, and she's just comforting him. And he's just asking if this is hell because of how horrible that he's feeling. And she's like, no, it's not. It's somewhere much better and much worse. I said, God damn, that's a crazy line. There's so many banger lines in these books. It blows my mind. But anyway, she's, you know, soothing him and comforting him. And he, in his POV, the chapter ends, I feel heavy, so heavy. I struggle to keep my eyes open as I murmur, don't let them kill me in my sleep. Her small hand closes around mine. Rest and heal. You're safe. I promise. I give into the pull of unconsciousness while clinging to the words I've waited my whole life to hear. And in chapter 4, Ashley's POV, she is pissed because she's like, hey, he needs to go to the hospital. Obviously, there's something like, again, poisoning, drugging, whatever going on with him. He is like actively dying on something. Like we have to take him somewhere. We have to take him to the hospital. Jack and Hugh absolutely refuse. So she tears them a new a-hole saying like, you don't actually care about your brother. You're just a bunch of selfish POSs. Like get off your little soapbox over here. You know, no soldier left behind, like whatever. Like it's all just a bunch of talk because you're happy with your lives now and you don't even care. Blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no, it's bigger than that, because if we take him to the hospital and they figure out what he is, and if Project Inkwell still exists and they know that we are alive, they'll come after all of us. Like, this is an incredibly dangerous thing. It's an incredibly dangerous thing that we are even, like, at this point, we don't know who is out there and who wants us dead, because clearly somebody did, at least at one point in time, right? She's like, okay, fine. Her mother is an ER nurse, and so she calls her mom. She says, Mom, I need you. I'm at my apartment. Can you come by here? Bring your medical bring your medical bag, and don't tell anyone anything specific I should prepare for. I give her a quick rundown of Ray's symptoms. I also explain that taking him to urgent care or hospital is not currently possible. I'm on my way, my mother says before ending the call, which again, I love. I love a mom who shows up when you need them. I love supportive parents. This is so cool. So the mom walks in to this apartment that's destroyed and bloodied, and there's a bunch of big old bloodied men everywhere. Doesn't bat an eye. She just goes immediately to her daughter, looks her up and down. Daughter's fine. So she says, what do you need? And again, I love. So she takes her into the bedroom to where Ray is. She places her large medical bag on the side of the bed next to Ray's arm and leans closer to study his pale skin. His arm's color changes to match the print of her bag. I know the second she sees it happen because her eyes rivet to mine. Ashley Ann, what am I dealing with here? Oh crap, she just middle named me. I take a deep breath and gush. A World War II super soldier the government tried to erase when the war ended but accidentally turned into silverware. He's the third to revert to human form. We believe dopamine and testosterone is what the first two used to initiate the transformation. Ray appears to have come back on his own, but possibly due to a drug that he may have been given right before the attempted erasure. My mother pins me with a look. I've never lied to her, never even been one to make up stories. And the others? She demands. You know Cheryl, I say breathlessly. Hello, Cheryl, my mother says as if it's the most normal situation in the world. Hi, Ashley's mom, Cheryl says. She takes Jack by the arm. This is Jack. I'm Mercedes. Mercedes chirps happily. And this is Hugh. We're engaged. He was a fork. Sometimes he still is. It's complicated. My mother nods slowly. I see. Mercedes continues. Jack was a spoon. And then she asks, are you all super soldiers? And Mercedes is like, oh my God, that'd be so crazy. No, Cheryl and I are just like normal. Okay. So the mom is taking this about as well as you can, right? She's doing everything that she can to be supportive of her daughter, but obviously not sure how you can really support that. In the middle of the mom helping Ray, he starts to like crash out, like his, you know what I mean? He like stops breathing and stops responding to stuff. And then suddenly he turns into a knife and she's like, hey, so what the fuck? She's like, hey, are you guys like drugging me right now? Like what exactly is happening? Like, this isn't funny. I'm coming out here. I work early in the morning. Like, I'm trying to do you a favor. And like, this is how you treat me. Like, what the frick is happening right now? Ashley's like, no, mom, it's not like that. It's not like that. Please just help him. Just help him. She's like, well, I can't. He's a fucking knife now. So what do you want? Hugh ends up turning into a fork to prove that it is serious or whatever, that this is like a real thing. And the mom is just like, okay, well, obviously he's about to die. Keep him in knife form as long as you can until I'm able to run these blood tests to try and figure out what's wrong and how to treat him. So she like ends up getting his blood off of Hugh, or Hugh or Jack, or whichever one is the only one that's remaining. I think it's Jack. She ends up getting like blood off of his sleeve and collecting blood samples from all of the super soldiers to try and like figure out what drug is maybe in Ray's body to try to treat it or what the frick ever. And just leaves, and she's just like, just keep him as a knife, okay? Just I call me if he turns back into human, I guess, if there's something for me to help here, because I don't even know how you would respond. All right, I'm not even mad at the mom. I don't even know. Okay. In chapter 5, from Ray's POV, he's back in this like limbo state, and he is obsessed with Ashley. So again, part of this whole thing is that when the guys wake up, whoever the person is that wakes them, they get this like crazy attachment, like instant bond to, and it's like this instant love situation. So he ends up back in this limbo, and she's all he can think about. How beautiful and amazing she is, and how driven and brave, and she's just like everything that he could ever want. And he feels her calling to him again, and so he like turns back into a man, and she's sitting there next to him, and she's comforting him, and she's like, hey, You know, they really weren't trying to kill you. All they wanted was for you to stay alive until they knew what to do with you. She tries to get him caught up that they think that somebody drugged him, and they have a little bit of like conversation, and he's trying to figure out, like, he's just flirting, to be honest. And he's like, well, what do you do for a living? And she's talking about working with robots. And he's like, robots? Like, that's not a thing. That's a stuff of the future. 1940s guy, right? She's like, yeah, you know, I got all these little projects. And she's telling him about it a little bit. And he starts to kind of crash out a little. He starts to crash out again. And she's like, don't you dare die on me, Ray. All you have to do is hang on until my mother gets back and she'll save you. She's amazing. And so he asks her to tell him about her robots. Like, I'm skipping over a lot of this because I'm going to try to cover 2 books in like one video for the sake of this. And so I'm just going to tell you now. She works for this little robotics company. She has gone rogue with these little tiny robots that she has built because she loves them and they're cute, and they were getting scrapped and the company didn't care, and she was able to change their code, and now they're sentient. First time she was able to, like, you know, crack the code to be able to have like actual sentient robots. And so she has these 6 little friends of hers, and they actually play like a surprisingly reoccurring role in both of the next 2 books. So we have super soldiers. We have little robots. It's absolute nonsense, dude. Again, he starts to like get sick again, and her mom's not going to get there in time. And so they force him to go back to being a knife. And by force, Hugh tells him that like Ashley hates you and she doesn't want you, and you're like a worthless piece of crap and you could never be happy. And that like messes with his dopamine enough that it's able to revert him into silverware. Because again, that's like the running theory right now, is that there's a connection between... Don't ask me. I don't know. This is the craziest book I've ever read in my entire life. I don't know, dude. So if you bully a guy, he'll turn into a utensil. Why not? So in chapter 6, the mom is finally able to run her tests at whatever lab thing she was able to do, and was able to figure out that, yeah, they're not men. They have like really irregularly shaped DNA. There's some craziness going on and some metallic substances and whatnot, because obviously they're sometimes silverware. Along with that DNA, there's also DNA from cephalopods, echinoderm, and holothurians, which is like sea creatures. So that's why they can regenerate their limbs. That's why they can camouflage into their surroundings, and a bunch of these other features and like the superhero aspects of them is because their DNA was mixed with DNA from other animals. But she's finally convinced that like he is actually super soldier, and that she's like coming to terms with all of this situation. She also has a plan for how to like counteract the poison that's in him and what Ray might have ingested. His HVA is extremely high, but his blood, unlike the others, contain a high amount of lead as well as biomarkers that indicate some other toxin. And so she's pretty much like, I'm just going to give him a bunch of antibiotics and we're going to hope for the best. So yeah, I believe you. Go ahead and turn him back into a human, and what's the worst that'll happen? Okay, don't really have a choice. So Ashley, she like puts her hand on him, and they like telepathically communicate. She's like thinking, and she's like, hey, Ray, you're a good man, you know, bad things happen to good people. You didn't deserve what happened to you. His past is incredibly dark. Like, he was abused by his father to the point that he was disabled and like unable to join the military. And that's why he had to join the super soldier program, and was also joining it to like get away from his father. Like, absolutely tragic backstory, right? So she's like, hey, it's not your fault. Like, you pretty much like you were made into a monster, and like to be this like angry person, and that's not who you are, and you're just a good guy, blah, blah, blah. Wills him back. He comes back too, and he gets the treatment, and they're having this like heart to heart about, you know, making it work and how amazing that both of them are. He can also telepathically communicate with her mother when her mother touches him, or he grabs her hand so he can telepathically tell her and prove to her of like, hey, you know, I do love your daughter and I'll do anything to protect her, and you don't have to worry, she's safe with me. And obviously this freaks Lauren, that's Ashley's mom, Lauren, out, because she's like, this guy was literally just in my brain, like speaking in my brain to me, and I was able to feel his feelings and like feel my daughter's feelings, and this is really, really weird. So she ends up stepping away. She's like, I need a minute. And by leaving, I just mean she's like kind of standing in Ashley's office in the other room, just like having an existential crisis. And in chapter 8, she had all these feelings, right? Because again, she was like, Ray was holding her mom's hand and her hand. And so she also felt all of these feelings of Ray's and this like commitment to her and this, oh my God, we're going to be together forever vibe. And so she's like, oh my God, am I actually going to be falling in love with a knife? Is my future going to be with knife? If we have children, am I going to give birth to cutlery? Like, this is so weird. What am I signing up for? He's a super soldier and Mercedes and Cheryl aren't crazy. This is all really happening. This is my life. Ah, right. Same. And in the middle of that, she's like, oh yeah, and my mom was there. My mom's also probably dealing with this. So she goes and like scurries off to find her. And her mom is standing in the middle of her office, blood-covered office. She's standing amid the scattered and torn photos of my robotic friends. Without speaking, I go to stand beside her. And after a moment, she says, I save people from the consequences of stupid decisions every day. Stupid decisions that their survival instincts should have stopped them from following through with. But how do I save my daughter from this? How do I convince her that getting involved with these people will get her killed? And Ashley says, they're war heroes, Mom. Come with me to my lab. You need to see their blood and flesh under the microscope. It's not like ours. They're not human. Not anymore. You're the one who always told me that love is love and differences don't make one person better or worse than another. You also said you'd support whoever I chose to be with, regardless of whether or not they fit into societal norms. Her face snaps in my direction. That is not the same. And so they end up having this like... It's a very cute motherly, daughterly back and forth about like, you know, I swear to God, if you give me grandchildren that turn into cutlery when I ask them to do chores, I'm going to be pissed. And, you know, Ashley being like, Mom, it's fine. I'm going to be safe. I promise. It's more than that. This is what I'm like called to do. I you know, this is what I'm really feeling. And the mom just being like, okay, daughter, I support you. It's, again, literally just like such a freaking mess. It's so funny. In chapter 9, from Ray's POV, it's like 2 hours later after being healed. Turns out the antibiotics worked. Everything's Gucci. He's dressed in modern day clothing, still trying to adjust the idea of being 80 years in the future and things being so wild, but he's trying. And so he's in this apartment with all of these people, and him and Ashley's little telepathy thing is just going crazy. And they're just like, what would you call it? It's like sexting, but like through telepathy. That's what they're doing, though. And it's very, very graphic, the things that they want to do to each other that they're thinking and in public to each other. They also talk about waking up the 9 more men that they have to save and whether or not they do it now or if they wait later. And again, kind of to a similar argument that we had in the previous books of there's a little bit of hesitation about doing it because they don't want to attract all this attention, but the men deserve it because they're kind of stuck in this like limbo prison and it's messed up to keep them there any longer if they have the opportunity to save them. So I don't know, you end up in this really moral kind of battleground of what the best answer is. And so the men all get into this fight about it and they end up deciding to just kind of call it a night and kind of everybody go their separate ways and just mull it over because they don't need to be fighting so much on the literal first day. Like everybody just needs to kind of cool off. So everybody goes their separate ways, including the mother who leaves while threatening Ray to take care of her daughter. And yet again, he does the whole like, you know, telepathy, I'll take care of her, don't worry thing. And it's cute. And it's reassuring. In chapter 10, right before they leave, Cheryl pulls Ashley aside and she says, hey, are you comfortable with Ray being here? Because he is, you know, you saw him earlier. He's a little irate and destroyed things. Like, are you feeling safe keeping him in your home? Love and respect. Honestly, I'm glad that we're having these types of conversations. This book is genuinely so good. And Ashley's like, yeah, no, it is. Like, I am comfortable with him being here. It's okay. I just... You know, it is what it is. He didn't know what was happening. He's okay now. Like, I feel safe with him. And then Cheryl goes on to say, okay, well, just like be careful if you do decide to get intimate with him because being with them is changing us. My eyes round at that. You think it could? She looks down. I don't know. I feel different when I'm with him. Everything looks better and tastes better. I feel so alive, but maybe this is just what love feels like. I'll cut to the chase. It's not. Exchanging bodily fluids gives them superpowers. So the women are like slowly getting this like super soldier. They don't like become super soldiers, but they're like, you know what I mean? Like slowly getting more and more, you know, advanced or like superpower type features. It's crazy. This book is so freaking goofy, dude. And so chapter 11, from Ray's POV, everybody finally leaves, and I think they just end up like boning this entire chapter. I'm pretty sure it's all just spice. Chapter 12 is literally all just spice. It's not bad spice, don't get me wrong. It's just spice though, so I'm not gonna read it to you in any way. And then chapter 13, she decides to take Ray, this is from Ray's POV, but she decides to take him to her workplace to show her her little robot office thing where she works at, and kind of like introduce him to everybody. She works in a very, obviously it's a STEM field, so inherently it's like a male dominated field. She's like the only woman in the office. She kind of runs stuff though, and her using her yiddies earlier to get his attention is kind of what she does at work, in the sense that it makes all the men uncomfortable enough to like leave her alone, just like to not talk to her, so she can get away with like sneaking around and stealing all these robots and doing these little side projects that she's doing. Like she's like straight up using her like sexuality to manipulate these men and be like a boss babe. And it's so funny. And so when they show up to her workplace and all of the men see Ray, everybody's like, oh man, this sucks. It's like, it's just goofy. So she ends up taking him into this little office room and introduces him to her robots, her little robot friends that she has made. All of chapter 13 is him meeting her robot friends while she has to go and do some work thing. And so he's like watching them. And these little robots, they're so cute, genuinely. They end up pestering him enough of like, hey, if you really love Ashley and if you really think that this is, you know, whatever, you should be able to turn into silverware and come back all on your own. It's not a chemical bond that's like making you two love each other or whatever. Like you choose to be with her, or like you should be able to will yourself out of the void. And that's how you know that like you want her for her, or something like that. There's like some weird logic stuff that goes behind it. Again, sentient robots, access to the internet, research everything, able to come up with all these conclusions. And then one of them is like obsessed with like porn, and it's like the equivalent of like 11-year-old boy that's just like invasive in everybody's business. It's again so goofy, quirky, cute. Okay, I cannot recommend you enough to read these insane books. Ruth Cardello, Forked, Spooned, Knifed, Serviced. Okay, so freaking funny, dude. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So funny. Anyway, so at the end of chapter 13, that's what Ray does. He turns into a knife and he turns right back. And the little robots are recording it the whole time so they can like prove to her that he did this. And so he realizes this, that he's able to, and that he did this. And so he doesn't need her. He doesn't need her to be a man. And so that means that he can choose to be with her willingly, which is just kind of a concern. And it was a big concern of Cheryl in the last book, where she was like, it's just a chemical bond. This isn't a real thing. Like, you're just here because you have to be. And I want you to want me for me. And so now we're getting proof that that's not the case. These are willful connections. And so Ray tells her as much. And he says, Ashley, I want you. I want to be here. I choose you. I choose to be with you. Chapter 14 marks that we are 80% of the way through the book. So inevitably, we get the drama, right? This is the peak chaos scene. And so as they go on this date, they want to go out to somewhere pretty in the city, and you know, afterward they, you know, get in the car, they go for a little drive, and then they kiss before they get out of the vehicle. And reluctantly I release her and cross over to her door to let her out. We're standing there looking into each other's eyes when the hair on the back of my neck rises, and I turn my head slowly to assess the situation. A man in a dark suit is standing directly to my right. He has a gun pointed at me. I swivel my head more. There are two more on that side, both armed with their guns drawn. I snap my head to the left and spot yet another two. Who are you? Ashley asks in a high pitch. What do you want? And it's the mob guys. It's the mob from the people who sorry. In the first book, when Hugh was trying to make some money for Mercedes or something, and he ended up joining like a fight club for a minute, and it was a fight club that was owned by the mob, and they had threatened him about like, oh, like, you'll come work for us, and if there's more people like you, then we'll recruit all of you to have this illegal fight ring. So the mafia people found them, and so that's who they're being confronted by right now. Obviously, Ray ends up like kicking their absolute asses, and as he's going to unalive all of them and like unalive the first of the group, Ashley's like, "No, please, you can't, Ray. This isn't who you are." And he says, "It is who I am." She places her hand on my free arm, and her next words are only for me, meaning telepathically. "No, this is who your father made and Inkwell perfected. You are a kind, loving man. I know your heart. That man is no danger to us now. Let him go. We don't know how he came to work for the mob. You're strong enough to make the right choice here." And he's thinking back, "Your compassion is wasted on him. He doesn't deserve it. This isn't about him. It's about you. You're always telling me that you don't care about the past, but you know that rage you hold on to? Your father gave it to you. That's his legacy, not yours. Let this man go, not because of who he is, but because of who you are." Oh, I can't laugh. Oh, Jesus. Oh, I just saw my life flash before my eyes. Did you see the fear in my eyes? I can't laugh. You know how hard this job is, knowing that I can't laugh? I'm like, the fear. Anyway, the reason I'm laughing is because she then decides to like adopt this guy. His name is Mitchell. They find out his name, and she's like, "We can't just set him free, like, because Mitchell, he can't just go out. He has no money. He owes everything to the mob." And so they like, Ashley convinces Ray to take Mitchell. He's like, "Come on, man, just take him under our wings. We'll get him to Hugh. Hugh knows how to get fake documents, and we'll get him some money, and we'll set him free, and he can have a life he always wanted." It's like the most random side quest thing ever. And in chapter 15, they end up boning again. Oh, maybe this is when they bone on the bridge. Who freaking knows? They just end up boning a lot. I don't know what you want from me, dude. In chapter 16, we're just continuing that spice scene, and he's just so into her and so in love with her. And then in chapter 17, it's the next day, Ashley's POV, she's washing the dishes, and all of a sudden Ray comes rushing into the room, and he says, "Hugh wants us at his place pronto." "Is it about Mitchell?" "No, it's something big though." "Okay." I grab my purse and I meet him at the door. "Do you have any idea what it's about?" He wouldn't tell me over the phone, which is not good because Hugh takes things really, really serious. And Ashley knows that Ray just doesn't, jump and do whatever Hugh wants. So this has to be something big. This has to be something crazy. And so when they get to the apartment, Cheryl says, "Yeah, we have the man that was following us. He's in the room. You got to come meet him." The man who was following us, again, if you happen to forget, and book number 2 had ended. The reason that Cheryl was late to meeting Ashley at the coffee shop was because she was driving there and there was a black SUV that had been following her. And toward the end of book number 2 as well, there was another time that the SUV with a guy that was sitting in it had been kind of sitting at the edge of the parking lot watching them, and the guys had clocked it, and it was kind of weird, and they were afraid that they were being followed by someone from Project Inkwell, or somebody was onto them, or Hugh had killed a guy, Jack had killed a guy, somebody had killed a guy. So they were worried that maybe the cops had found out about it. There was like some tension about being followed. And so now they're like, "Oh no, he's in the living room. You want to come meet him?" I said, "Excuse me?" Turns out his name is Edward, super soldier Edward. He was not with the rest of the cutlery set because Director Falcon had brought him back a month after they were made into utensils. Hello? Edward was a dessert spoon. The director must have been drawn to him. You know how it goes once that connection is made. Edward said that Falcon took the silverware after the event because he wanted something to remember the men by. He couldn't leave it behind, and I bet Edward was calling to him even then. And the craziest thing is that Edward hasn't aged. And so then the immediate question from Ashley is, "Oh, well, did Dr. Falcon age? Like, what about, how'd that work?" And the answer is no, he got so obsessed with Inkwell, with making sure that Project Inkwell ended with the war, that it got him killed. He made Edward promise to keep the silverware safe if he didn't return. Okay, so Edward's had the silverware the whole time? No, he was afraid someone would come for him too, so he gave the box to Hugh's mother to keep safe. She gave it to one of her sons. His children needed money, so they sold it, and Edward bought it and gave it to his great-nephew, Greg. Ashley's mouth drops open and she says, "Wait, Greg is in our Greg?" Small world, right? We had a super sleuth spy in our mix. Making sure that we were the right fit. What? What are you saying to me right now? What the fuck are you saying to me right now? So Greg, their friend, was in on it the whole time. Greg, the upstairs neighbor guy. That's why he was probably like in the elevator with her so often and like flirting with her and whatnot, trying to like keep tabs on them for his like super soldier great uncle survivor guy. What is happening? He also goes on to say that like Edward, they finally go in and meet him. And you know, he's like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I know I kept it a secret from all of you guys for so long, and I kept you guys hidden away, but I just didn't think that it was ever safe. And now's the best time than any, and I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. But don't worry, guys. I've invested in a bunch of stuff over the last, 80 years, and I have more money than we could spend in 100 lifetimes. And it's under an umbrella corporation named BFAOODT. Brothers fighting as one or dying together. They end up, all the guys end up like dogpiling on him, and they all end up hugging and crying, and everyone's all so happy. And in chapter 18, this is the final chapter of the book, Ray pulls Edward aside to ask him like, hey, if you talked to Dr. Falcon, if you guys were like a whole thing, did he tell you what happened? Like, am I the reason that all of us are spoons, basically? Am I the reason that, like, did I kill them? Did he poison me? What happened? So he kind of confirms this. Edward says, you were weakened, given mind-altering drugs, and then weaponized. They chose you because they knew you had a weakness for one of the drugs they had on us in the beginning. But honestly, they could have chosen any of us. You weren't in control of your own actions when you pulled the lever on the device. And so Ray's like, I did this to us. He says, no, Ray, they did this to us. They used you like they used all of us. I don't blame you for what happened. Falcon was convinced a part of you fought against the mind control enough to change the calibration of the device. The original setting would have killed us for certain. All you did was morph us into silverware. You like saved them, actually. And so then the book ends with them talking and him hearing like screaming in the other room, and he hears Ashley, and he's like, I can't do this. I can't lose her already. I finally found her. I finally loved her. And he busts through the door of the kitchen and I sweep her behind me, shielding her from whatever the threat might be. No intruder, no weapons. Everyone just staring open-mouthed at Ashley's mother in the silverware she's clutching in one of her hands. A fork, a knife, and a spoon. Holy shit. A furious Ashley steps out from behind me. Mercedes, what the hell were you thinking? All innocence and smiles, Mercedes shrugs, and Greg just asked for suggestions on how we could expedite the process of bringing the unit back. When your mother showed up, like a sign. She showed up because I asked her to, Ashley growls. Mom, put the silverware back. No, her mother says in a quiet voice, I don't want to. So her mom has 3 super soldiers in the silverware that have now been awakened and are yearning for her and are calling for her. And she's like, Mom, they're 25 years old and you're in your 40s. Her mother looks up with a small bemused smile. That sounds horrible. It would be. Put them back. I wrap my arms around Ashley and I draw her back to me, and then I whisper in her ear, Ashley, your mother has worked hard her whole life. If she wants this, let her have a few super soldiers. That's how the book ends. Do you see why this is a two-part review? I have to finish the last book. I have to tell you how this freaking insane universe ends. This is like so stupid. It's like stupid in a good way. Don't get me wrong. I just like, oh my good God, dude. So going into book number 4 called Serviced, I'm going to read you the book description real quick and then we'll dive right in. Utensils are for more than stirring up trouble. Lauren gave up on love a long time ago. As an ER doctor, sorry, I said nurse earlier, doctor, she saves lives daily and keeps her own life safe and predictable. Until a set of antique silverware warms to her touch. Suddenly, Lauren finds her the unexpected heroine in a reverse harem tale, surrounded by 8 World War II super soldiers who are as tempting as they are chaotic. Falling in love with sentient spoons, forks, and knives, it's absurd, testosterone-charged mayhem, and yet love always finds a way. This isn't your typical sentient object romance. Expect rom-com hilarity, Marvel-level action, and a poignant love story wrapped in a quirky utensil fantasy universe. Cautionary warning, utensil dynamics are highly unconventional. There's a battle brewing that can only be resolved with the elimination of inkwell. There will be violence and heartbreak, but justice will finally be served. What are you saying to me? So the first highlight I have in chapter 1 is Lauren thinking, I shouldn't have touched the silverware Mercedes offered me. I knew the risk. It's my fault that the 3 men who had been comfortably dormant inside those utensils are now likely confused and feeling trapped. I woke them simply by touching them. And now they're bonded to me, a 46-year-old woman who can't remember the last time that she had sex and doesn't care if she ever has it again. What am I going to do with 3 World War II super soldiers who feel mated to me just because I'm the one who woke them? And so she ended up calling into work to take some time off to figure all of this out. She is a workaholic, though. She ends up getting a phone call from Braxton Hayes. He's one of the hospital's largest benefactors. I don't know why he chose me as his liaison for the hospital. He claims it's because he doesn't like to wade through hospital politics and prefers my blunt nature over the ass-kissing he receives from most people. Despite being someone I have nothing in common with, I don't dislike him. He's the reason the hospital now has one of the country's best-funded burn centers. He contacts me at least once a month to check in. He'll ask about Ashley and Ryan, who is Ashley's twin brother, who I didn't bring up in the last whatever at all because he's like very irrelevant. He's like completely out of their lives as well. And he also asks about life in general. I've never been one to engage in idle chit chat, so we keep it brief. But he has been there supporting her through like everything in her life, like every, birthday, significant event, anything. He calls and, sends her a card or sends her flowers and congratulates her and whatever. So he's just kind of been this like presence throughout time and whatnot. And so he's calling her yet again to ask if she's okay and make sure that everything is all right. She says, yeah, I'm fine, Braxton. Don't worry about it. And he says, okay. And then she gets another phone call from Ashley asking if she can come over. They have something that they need to talk about. And Lauren says, Jesus Christ, I hope it's not more silverware. She gets to her apartment, she gets settled, Ashley shows up, and it's it's not more silverware, it's robots. She brings 4 robots for her to watch them just for a little while. And it's I don't know, dude. I don't know. It has officially, this series has gone off the rails. I can't remember what exactly the reasoning is, and I don't care to look anymore, but something happens where Ashley decides to take all of the robots out of work and to keep them like at the apartment with her. But the issue is that, again, they're like kids and they're interested in everything and they just want to like poke around and be engaged all the time. And Ashley and Ray just want to like, be grown-ups and do things in private and not have to worry about all these robots walking in on them essentially and running around and causing trouble. And so she's asking her mom if she can babysit a couple of them for a bit. Eventually they do win her over and she accepts these 4 and she'll keep an eye on them. Again, it's just very cute dynamic and whatnot. I think it's just character building. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose. Like in the grand scheme of it, these little robot dudes add nothing to it other than just a little quirk. But in chapter 3, we get Pete's point of view. This is our newest super soldier that we're getting introduced to. And this is his POV from 1941. And it's just a scene of him being at Inkwell, and we get it revealed to us that he joined it because he had ulcerative colitis. I don't know how to pronounce any words, but basically digestive issues, like really, 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 really bad digestive issues that made him unable to join like the regular military, and so he joined Project Inkwell. In chapter 4, back to Lauren's POV, she has set these guys up 3 utensils, each laid out on its own sleeping bag. They look a bit ridiculous there, but if they come back, I want to soften the blow of their return any way I can. I've had time to plan and prepare. If they wake while I'm not there, I've placed a letter beside each of them with directions on how to turn on the tablet I've placed on the desk. 1 tap turns it on, 1 tap on the triangle that appears will play a video. I put together a presentation explaining everything from what happened to them, how much time has passed, who has already come back, to who I am, and what my goal is for them. For purposes of clarity, I also explained that any physical attraction that they may feel toward me is due to the chemical bond that was formed when I woke them. I carefully outlined how I intend to compare their blood samples to that of the others and hopefully isolate the cause of the bond. So she's going about this, again, very, very medicinally, very, very technically, right? She doesn't want to fall in love with these super soldiers the way that the other women have in the previous books. She just wants to take care of them. She's just trying to make sure everybody can come home and be safe and be happy, right? But she's, again, not really interested in love in such a way. We also learned from Ray's return in the last book that they don't have to be intimate for them to return. It can just be a yearning. It can just be like whatever releases that dopamine to bring them back. So that's kind of like, it's this weird waiting game now to see what happens with these utensils. And the chapter ends with her getting some text messages from Braxton. He flew out to Ireland to go and do some like charity work that he does, and she was joking with him about him having a private plane, and it's low-key kind of flirty banter. She's like unwilling to admit that that's what it is, but it is essentially what it is. And he says, hey, all joking aside though, you taking this time off, I want to make sure that you're not burnt out, and all that matters to me is that you're happy. And you know, if you're taking this time off to spend with somebody, that's awesome. Like whoever it is, I hope they treat you well. And she says, thank you for checking on me. And he says, always. Good night, Lauren. Oh. In chapter 5, back in Pete's point of view, and he could sense her in the room with him, and then she disappeared into the other room. And so he's like feeling a little lost, and he's thinking, where am I? And why is she so sad? I feel the weight of her loneliness as if it's my own. Someone hurt her deeply and she's closed herself off like a princess in a tower, trapped like I am, waiting for someone to save her, but believing that nobody can. And so Pete wills himself awake for the sheer fact that he wants to comfort Lauren in her loneliness. So he comes to, looks around him. He sees the sleeping bags and the silverware, and he sees the tablet and this letter that she wrote to him. But he senses her in the apartment. And so he decides not to watch the video because he's like, she's here. So instead he goes wandering around until he finds her in her bedroom, and she's like, oh my God. And then he ends up like approaching her, and she gets up and they start making out, and it's like super, super passionate. And she's like, you didn't watch the video, did you? And he says, no. Will you watch it with me though? They go in there, they watch it together, and it is a lot to take in, like emotionally. Obviously, this is quite a bit. You know, Hugh has a portion on there where he's talking about everything. You know, Ray and Jack, they all have little bits where they're getting him caught up on, you know, kind of the status of the world and whatnot. And his head is just spinning at the end of it. And at the very last thing, Lauren's image comes on the screen, so serious, her tone so professional, and she's in a lab coat. I'm impressed, not only by her obvious intelligence, but also by her determination to help all of us. She explains that a bond is formed between the soldiers trapped in the silverware and the woman who wakes them, a bond that could easily be confused with sexual or emotional attachment. She follows that with a plan for how she intends to break that bond and free us from her. When the video ends, neither of us speak for several minutes. I must be in shock because I'm temporarily numb. It's too much to take in all at once. And so then finally, she's like, you know, hey, do you have any questions? Like, what can I do for you? Like, how can I support you? And he's like, I just want a hug. I just want a hug. We haven't known each other long enough for you to trust me, but I have to believe you can sense that you're safe with me. And I would never hurt you. You're a part of me. And in chapter 6, from Lauren's POV, they end up like straddling each other, and I'm pretty sure they like cuddle on the couch and fall asleep together. But the whole time they're like having the telepathic communications, and they're chit-chatting and, you know, opening up to each other, like fully letting each other into each other's minds of like what their past used to be. And so this is where we get it revealed about Lauren's relationship with like Ashley's dad. The dad found out she was pregnant with twins, and then he like dipped out and didn't care about being a part of their lives in any way. And that was like her ultimate heartbreak. And then she had to get like super, super serious about life to raise 2 babies all by herself. And so she's just been really, really closed off and lonely and busting her ass and doing all of this stuff. And he's, you know, trying to comfort her. He obviously has his own trauma and all the stuff that he saw in war, but he's so supportive. And yeah, like I said, they end up like falling asleep together in each other's arms, cuddling, and it's super uber cute. In chapter 7, we're in Pete's POV. He wakes up, I think it's like middle of the night, super early the next day after falling asleep in each other's arms. So romantic, so sweet, so cute, whatever. He's like going through the apartment house, wherever the hell she lives. And One of the little robots. Something scurries across my toes, and I jump so high I hit my head on the ceiling, and then I land in a crouch with one hand flat on the floor. That's that Marvel. It's like the Black Widow pose. It's like all I was picturing. Anyway, so it's one of the little robots. He smacks the shit out of it. It goes flying across the room. It hits the wall. It's like in pain and crying, and all the other little robots come scurrying out to comfort it. And he's like, what is happening? They're like, oh, we're just friends. What, you think you're a big bad guy? How about you turn back into silverware? And they're just like talking crap back and forth to each other. Eventually, Lauren comes back out, and the robot that he hit is named George. He's the one that is like obsessed with people's intimate lives, and he's like 11-year-old boy that's just very like invasive and curious. And he also wears a little purple cowboy hat. That's like his favorite thing. And so they're arguing when Lauren comes out, and she says, hey, what is going on in here? George and I point at each other and in unison claim, he started it. Lauren looks from me to George and back, and then quite to my surprise bursts out laughing. This is my life now. I have a spoon and a horny robot fighting in my living room. She bends to laughing, gasping for air. How is this my life? John is this little drone robot. He flies around her once and then hovers near me. We may have broken her. Two spider-like creatures come out from under the couch and approach her, looking concerned. Their little feet making clickety-clack sounds on the floor. One turns to face me, its eyes round and glowing, while the other inspects Lauren. And they're like just checking on her, and she's asking if they're okay. And George had tried to scare him on purpose, because George says, I thought intense-emotion changed them back into utensils, so I tried to scare him, and instead he slugged me. I frowned down at him. If you wanted to scare someone, you might want to lose the silly hat. George retracts both in height and width and rolls away. John follows him a few feet and then flies back to us. He loves that hat. It was the first thing Ashley gave him after she updated our code. She told him it made him look handsome. He's a machine, I say incredulously. Lauren purses her lips. He's sentient, and I owe my daughter an apology for doubting her. Sentient? Machines? It sounds impossible, but I went to an award dinner as a super soldier and woke up 80 years later after being imprisoned in a spoon, so maybe nothing is impossible. A moment later, Lauren meets my gaze, and I know what she's thinking, even though I can't hear her thoughts. I'm not apologizing to a machine. He needs to learn impulse control, but he didn't hurt you, so there was no real harm done. Can you say the same? I glance over to where George is. Sulking? Do robots sulk? I guess if they've achieved a level of thinking and feeling, they might. He does look hurt by what I said. I know what it's like to be ridiculed, to be told to ignore the cruel comments when there really is no way to. Before Inkwell, I couldn't control my flatulence, and many people I knew as well as strangers, mocked me. George, I call out, but he doesn't respond. I clear my throat and raise my voice. I'm sorry I made fun of your hat. He turns slowly. It's not silly. Ashley said it looks good on me. Dude, what am I reading? So they continue to have some back and forth, and it just ends up being a cute little bonding moment, okay? A little hunky-dory, happy robot super soldier family. Everybody's happy. When we go into chapter 8, Lauren and Pete are hanging out a little bit more, and they continue to like open their minds to each other so they can poke around and see what's up. And she ends up answering a phone call that she gets from Braxton. And so in the middle of them kind of like hanging out that day, she gets a phone call from Braxton, and she picks it up and she asks if there's a reason for the call. And he's just, wanting to say hello, and that, Ireland is beautiful, but it's like surprisingly lonely. And she forgot that she was touching Pete. And so Pete is like telepathically communicating to her like, oh, who is that? And she's like, oh, it's just a guy. And he says, well, let me in. And so she opens her mind to Pete so that Pete can see all of her and Braxton's, like, the way that they've talked and the way that she feels about him. And Pete says he's in love with you. He wanders around memories I have of Braxton cheering me on through every major life event, Ashley and Ryan graduating from high school and then college, my promotions, birthdays, holidays. He's never forgotten to reach out with a call, a card, or a small gift. And then Pete tells her straight up, like, hey, he's in love with you. And that really, really messes Lauren up, because she's kind of in, like, denial about the whole thing. Long story short, Pete ends up like encouraging her to actually open up to Braxton for once, of like, hey, how about you actually tell him what's going on? Tell him what you're, at least kind of vaguely as much as we can, obviously keeping things secret, but tell him that you're struggling and, you know, see if he can help you out or whatever, like, or talk you through it. You need to be like emotionally open to this guy. Talk to Braxton. If we end up together, I want it to be because you chose me and not because you never let yourself choose him. Damn. She says, I don't understand. And he telepathically, he's saying, yes, you do. Instead of hanging up on him this time, tell him what you're struggling with. And so she does. They talk a little bit and he's incredibly supportive. And so she ends up asking Braxton of like, hey, you know, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff with Ashley and some of her friends right now. They got in some trouble. No, it's not legal. It's nothing like that. I need somewhere to go that has some space. And ideally, the place would be somewhere private and big enough so Ashley and her friends could stay with me just for a few weeks, close but outside of the city. Could you help me find somewhere like that? I know it's a long shot, but he has a lot of... Oh, and she's thinking, I know it's a long shot, but he has a lot of medical connections. He might know a vacant facility, because she also wants like a whole, basically like a hospital lab worth of stuff that she can work with as well. And he says, you're in luck. I own what you're looking for. You do? 40 minutes west of Providence. It was a campground, but I built a large house on it. 30 or so acres, several outbuildings. One could easily be modified into a lab. Private beach access too. And she's like, and it's empty? And he says, yeah, it's a family property. We just go there in the summertime. It's like totally empty, but yeah, you can have it. And they go on to finally have like one of the first conversations that they've ever had that lasted more than just like pleasantries, where she's asking a bit about his family, and turns out she already met his brother because she ended up running into him at some point and like popped his arm back into socket for him and kept it a secret. And it was a really, really big deal because the brother was already coming back to work after some other injury. And so if they found out that he got hurt again, he would have been fired. And so she really, really hooked him up, and it really stuck out in the brother's mind and made a huge impact on him. The brother told Braxton about Lauren because the brother was like, she's so amazing. She's so cool. She helped me out. Like, absolutely beautiful and caring. Like, you really, you know, go and find this girl or whatever. Tried to like play matchmaker with his like EMT respondent person. And so Braxton showed up to give her flowers the one day as a thank you and talk to her. But when he finally ran into her, she was with another man. And then he's like, was that the kid's father? And she says, yeah. And it's just like, it's really bonding, right? Opening conversation. We also learn that he became a self-made, like, billionaire because of this sensor that he was able to create. A little sensor that I thought might save the life of fellow firefighters, but ended up with a wider spectrum of usages. It picks up fluctuations in oxygen levels at a distance and through physical barriers. My goal is to predict flashovers, but turns out it can be used in everything from aerospace engineering to waste management facilities. So that's why he's like a billionaire, and now he just does philanthropy. Okay. And so he tells her, and so he's like, yeah, don't worry. You can go out to the campground thing. Just give me a day or two to make sure that it gets set up for you. And I'll send you the address and you can just head out there and, you know, we'll talk more sometime. And it's just, her heart is thawing for this man. And so as she goes to hang up with Braxton, she looks up, and in the doorway is another super soldier. This time, his name is Franklin. So chapter 9 is from Franklin's POV, and it's the backstory about him joining Inkwell. He was healthy. He joined the regular military, ended up getting his, like, losing his leg in whatever military incident, returned home, and his, like, sweetheart that he was going home to ended up moving on while he was at war. Like, she thought that he had died, so she had like a new partner, and that really, really broke his heart. And so he ended up joining Inkwell to go back to the war, and like really doesn't have any respect for women and just like does not care. And he's just like a big flirt and just like doesn't want any relationships and blah, blah, blah. Coming on very, very heavy, like onto her. And in chapter 10, it's Franklin and Pete having a little bit of like confrontation of Pete, you know, wanting to be with her, and then Franklin being like, well, I don't care who you're with, like, you could be with all of us, and who are you really feeling? And Pete acting like a bodyguard, and just like some really, really weird tension between the whole lot of them. And then she ends up like reading Franklin's mind, and that really freaks him out and pisses him off, so he storms out of the room. And then she talks to Pete a little bit more about how she's like opening her heart and she's gonna try to have more than what she has. And then they like hug again, and it's this really, really cute moment. So now I'm gonna ruin your day. A lot of people, I think, did not like this book, and a couple of the 1 stars that I had seen for this book on Goodreads was because this is not actually a reverse harem at all. This is at all. And that's all I can say. She does not end up hooking up with any, let alone all, of the super soldiers. It was a complete mismarketed thing, I think, to like, I don't know why it would be. I don't know why the book description was written in such a way. I would have read it anyway. It was just like false advertising. So it's still cute. Obviously, we are 41% of the way through, and I'm going to keep telling you the story and we're going to finish it. But I don't want you to get your hopes up that this is a true situation like that. This is in fact not. There is no utensil lovin' in this book. So what the heck, man, right? Chapter 11 is from the final super soldier's POV, Elliot, like the final of the 3 that were on the sleeping bags or whatever. He's reflecting on his life. He's about to come to, and he can kind of feel Lauren's like feelings and essence and whatever. And in that moment, I understand not just the chemical side of the bond, but also why Pete isn't fighting it. I can see into Lauren's very soul as I peel layer after layer back, and all I discover is love for her children, love for humanity and those who suffer, even robots, although I'm not entirely sure what they are. The only fear I find of hers is in failure to be enough for those who depend on her, and the fear of trusting a man with her heart again, of allowing herself to need someone and have them leave her the way the father of her children did. And so he's like madly in love with her, and he sees all these other men in love with her, and he's like, oh, I can see why. She's just such this amazing being. I think that's the last time we get anything from like him or Franklin's POV. It's so silly. Oh, in chapter 12, Lauren's POV, yet again, she's telling all of them about how they're going to go out to this campground and how everyone will be welcome there. The location would allow for both privacy as well as space to explore your abilities, how your abilities have or have not been affected by your time as silverware. It will also allow me to put together an on-site lab where I can do the testing that helping you will require. So they're like, oh, this is great. Like, okay, what an awesome idea. And then as they're all kind of like packing up and getting settled with the idea that this is like going to be the next step, Mercedes gets the bright idea of, hey, well, if Lauren is able to wake up the utensils without having to be intimate with them, and she's trying to break these bonds, why doesn't she just wake up the other soldiers as well? Like the other 5, 8, however the remaining ones are. She's like, why doesn't she just wake up everybody? Like, might as well just get it over with. I say, oh my God. I bark out a laugh and then freeze as I realize no one else finds the idea as ludicrous as I do. Pete's expression is tight and I ache for him. I seek to reassure him, and she tells him I would never do that. Because Pete is actually like in love with her. Franklin and the other guy are kind of resistant and understanding that like there's nothing there. But Pete does have some very deep feelings for her, and so he's like, torn, right? Because he's trying to like push her toward Braxton. He's trying to be supportive of all these other ways, and she's trying to be respectful of his feelings. And so she's like, no, don't worry, like I won't wake all of them up. And he says, you're a kind-hearted, honest, dedicated soul. I hate that Braxton exists. I hate sharing you with Franklin and Elliot, but I agree you might be the best person to bring the rest of the men back. You want nothing from us and are committed to neutralizing the bond. Hugh, Jack, and Ray found healthy love, but that's not guaranteed for the rest. In the wrong hands, the attachment we might feel for the one who wakes us could be weaponized. As much as it guts me to say, Mercedes is right. You are the one that should bring the others back. This is so funny, dude. And so she grabs the 5 other utensils and everybody piles on together and they all head out to the freaking campground. Good God. Chapter 13, Braxton's point of view. It's him talking to his brother on the phone, like while he's in Ireland, and his brother kind of bullying him about not having like a woman in his life. And he's like, well, I have one and I've been obsessed with her for 20 years, but she's never given me the time of day. And it was Lauren, right? Teddy, his brother, had tried to set them up. He tried to give her, flowers and whatnot, but she was with another man. And then he had an accident that led him to be hesitant about getting close to women. And then by the time I looked her up again, she was a doctor with no interest in me or any other man. There's just something about her. I'd rather be a small part of her life than a large part of anyone else's. Like, he does love her so freaking much, but she's already not interested. And imagine if she knew how I looked below the neck. And his brother says, she's a doctor. You really think she'll judge you for your burns? And we find out that he was a firefighter. And the flashover thing that he created that sensor for is because that's what happened to him. There was this crazy thing that happened. It was like 80% of his like body got burned. His like chest is particularly got it bad. Like his upper body got it horrendously, where he has like all of these like skin grafts and everything. And it was like so many surgeries that he had to go through. And it's something that he's very, very self-conscious of. And women that he's tried to like be with previously, it's freaked them out enough that it's made him concerned about it. So it's just sad. Like, again, there's a lot of depth in this goofy freaking book. You know what I mean? But we know unquestionably how much he loves Lauren and has loved her and been obsessed with her for like literally 20 years, which I love so much. In chapter 14, Lauren's POV, they show up at Braxton's campground and it's amazing. It's beautiful. The house is fully stocked with all sorts of food for them. The lab is completely decked out with everything that she could ever ask for. Like, he has gone so entirely and completely above and beyond of everything that she could have like needed or asked for or wanted. And so she ends up calling him that night and she says, hey, if you're in bed, just say so and I can call back tomorrow. His chuckle is deep and I warm all over as it tickles my ear. I am in bed, but don't let that ever stop you from joining me. Calling me. I smile at that. Always the flirt. Only with you. My heart flutters in my chest. Could he mean that? How was your day? Productive. Usually this is where I would pivot the conversation, but I don't know if I want to close him out anymore. What'd you do? Without hesitation, he walks me through the meetings he arranged and how happy he is with the renovations of the like unit philanthropy thing that he's out like visiting now. And they have this like entire back and forth until at the very end of the phone call, she does open up to him a little bit. And she's like, hey, there is a lot of stuff that we need to talk about, but we can't do it over the phone. The situation is potentially dangerous and I've involved you already by bringing everyone into your home and I'm wrestling with that. You don't have to get pulled in deeper and I'd respect you if you wanted to wait until this whole shitstorm passes before we hold on. There's a lot to unpack here. First, if you're working yourself up to ask me on a date, the answer is yes. Phew, I'm glad we have that hard part resolved. As far as you potentially bringing in danger, there's nothing in Ireland that can't be handled by phone. I just texted my pilot. We'll talk about the rest in person tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow? Only because teleportation isn't a thing yet. She says, this isn't a joke, Braxton. Good, because I'm serious. Should I come armed? Again, I don't know why that's hot. No, yes, maybe. How can you agree to help without having any idea what you're doing? Because I know you, Lauren. This was important enough for you to take time away from the hospital. Whatever you're doing, I'm all in. Even if I'm out here burying bodies on your property, just don't mess up the front lawn. I worked really hard to get it nice. This is so cute. And so he's like, don't worry, I'll be there as soon as I can. From Ireland? This is so cute. Chapter 15, Lauren's POV. It's the next day. Braxton shows up with his brothers, Teddy and Cole. There's so many people in this freaking book. It doesn't really matter. His brothers come, they're armed. They all show up. They go inside and at the like dining room table, it's all the super soldiers and it's like everybody all around. So it's like 20 freaking people in this room vibing. And so she ends up walking through the whole thing and telling them what's up. World War II, there was an organization called Inkwell. They were a classified program that conducted experiments on men who had been medically disqualified from enlisting. The goal was to not only heal these men, but to turn them into super soldiers who could round up Germany's top scientists and acquire the means to make an atomic bomb. After achieving this goal, Inkwell gathered these men together in one location and attempted to eliminate them. Thankfully, one of the soldiers was able to modify the weapon meant to kill them, and in doing so, somehow trapped them in silverware. Obviously, Braxton and his brothers thinks that she is insane, that she has lost her mind, but they're trying to be supportive. You know, they're trying to believe her. So chapter 16 is, her trying to convince them. It gets to a point where, like, they step out into the hallway. They have this, like, really cute moment together about talking about him buying her sunflowers. It's whatever. And then they go back into the room and she's like, please, you have to believe me. And then she ends up, like, turning the one guy's, like, the newest super soldiers, like the 5 ones that we're not really introduced to. turns them into silverware, and then brings them back into like man form. And so now they all believe her, Braxton and his brothers do, and they're like, there's no way this is fucking real, but okay, I guess we don't really, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with this information. Ray then like breaks a marble countertop and crushes it in front of them to prove the super soldier aspect of all of this. And then Braxton's like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing. And so then they're all like, they sign up for it. They said, we're here for Lauren, you know, but if what you're saying is true, you've gained 3 more supporters. Help set you guys free of this whole Inkwell thing. And Lauren, with pride in her eyes, says, thank you. Whatever happened to these men was wrong, and I won't leave them until I know I've done everything possible to help them. And then the robots come out. There's no reason to be concerned. A knee-high robot rolls into the kitchen. A robot? And of course it has a cowboy hat on. Why the fuck wouldn't it? It's literally just like this campground, this big cabin just filled with robots and super soldiers and crazy women banging utensils. And a billionaire. What is happening, dude? In chapter 18, it's a little bit of bonding between Lauren and Braxton. They're talking more and more while she's in the laboratory, like conducting these experiments. And he's like, hey, maybe instead of looking for what they all have in common, you should be looking for what some of them have and some of them don't. Which I was like, is that not what looking for things in common mean? What do you mean? But what he's saying is like, if Edward returned 80 years ago, and then we have like Jack, Hugh, and Ray that have been here for longer, and then we have the brand new ones, like you should see what the differences are between all of their different blood samples to see like the levels of things, or like how they change over time, and this whole chemical bond that they have, like trying to indicate levels of chemical imbalance or what the frick ever, based off of comparing them based on duration of being silverware versus not or something. I don't know. It's like a whole thing. And then they find out that yes, Project Inkwell is still going on. They've been experimenting with integrating artificially intelligent robotic parts with humans. Regeneration is no longer their focus. They're seeking to solve what they call diminishing control factors. Each generation of soldiers they've created reached a point of independent thought and were subsequently terminated. The latest batch was considered a failure due to the inability of the human brain to control the AI chip and vice versa. And so her chest tightens and she's like, oh my God, they never stopped. They're still off creating super soldiers and just killing them. And it's the robots that found this out, because again, the little sentient robots that Ashley made have this whole like unlimited access to the internet, and I guess like to certain databases or something, and don't ask. And so the robots get upset about this because they're like, oh, they're not only hurting people, they're unplugging robots. We're anti-Project Inkwell as well. They're hurting robots too. So, that's a little alarming. That's a little concerning, but okay. At least we're all fighting the same fight. And then the chapter ends with her finally figuring out this whole chemical thing. The initial stage of the bond is purely chemical, but since there's no longer a trace of it, it's oxyferrin 7. In Hugh, Jack, or Ray, that means that it doesn't stay in their system. What Ray feels for Ashley is real. Ashley, Cheryl, and Mercedes all show signs of cellular adaptations since bonding with the soldiers. They've even gained some of their abilities. Although I'm not sure about the extent of this or the cause, it could be due to an exchange of bodily fluids, which is disgusting as far as I'm concerned. I don't like that phrasing, but that's great news. The bond goes away. It's true love across the board, and you know, the women are now little superheroes as well. How fun and exciting. Chapter 19 is Lauren and Braxton breaking the news to everybody about the chemical bonds, about Inkwell, and him telling his brothers to go home because somebody will have to take care of the family in case this goes sideways. Like, somebody needs to be there, so don't worry, guys, I'll handle it. And then getting all of the guys together to try and figure out how in the heck they're gonna take down Project Inkwell. In chapter 20, Lauren's POV, after they do all of this announcement and stuff, Braxton walks her back to her cabin. It's tension, it's cute, you know, it's like a will they, won't they type of moment, and he waits for her to go up inside of her cabin, and she opens the door and she flips on the light, and it's covered in sunflowers. Like ceiling to like floor to ceiling, every color of the rainbow, sunflowers everywhere. And she turns to him and she says, Braxton Hayes, if you think I'm gonna fuck you just because you bought me flowers, I can't keep the smile from my face. You are absolutely right. Get in here. In chapter 21, from Braxton's POV, they are doing just that. They are having some spice, having some fun. They fall asleep together. And then in chapter 22, Braxton's POV, he wakes up early, leaves Lauren to go over to the main part of the thing where all of the super soldiers are to have a conversation about what they're going to do next. And he's like, I have a plan for how we're going to take them down. We're going to lure their top players together, the people who benefit the most, and make the decisions. And then I glance at each of them in turn. Then you do what they trained you to do. And Ray's like, how will we get them in one place? And he says, I have a business partner who's a pretty big deal. He wields all kinds of influence that attracts powerful people like moths to flame. And he'll help us because he's used to having enemies, and he'll do the right thing. And so they all agree to this. Yeah, that's the plan. Talk to your buddy. We'll get it together. We'll take him down. As they all agree to this and everyone cheers and it's great, he goes to leave. And all of a sudden, Ray flies up to him. Not literally. I should specify that because that's actually something that could happen in a book like this. He runs up to him, slices Braxton's arm, like elbow to wrist, and then does it to his arm and then rubs their arms together to merge their blood. And Braxton's like, hey, what the fuck, dude? I thought we were cool. Why are you attacking me? And Ray's like, you can't be weak anymore, man. And then shoves his blood into Braxton's mouth, because the whole idea of exchanging bodily fluids and turning them into super soldiers, he's trying to turn Braxton into a super soldier. It's not working out very well because Braxton goes into the darkness. He gets really, really cold and starts to pass out. What are you talking about? He wakes up, though, and he's fine. His arm is healed. Everything's great. It did work. It was a little unconventional. Would have been nice to have a little bit more consent there and not so bloody, but it works. And Ray rubs it in everybody's face. And Braxton's only question is, I'm not going to turn into silverware, am I? I ask as the thought intrudes. Ray and Hugh exchange a look and then shrug. Great. I hope I'm not a ladle. In chapter 23... Lauren's POV. It's been I think it's been a couple of weeks at this point. Yeah, over the past few weeks, Braxton has been training with the super soldiers, preparing for this mission that they're going on. And her and Braxton have gotten closer and closer together, which also means them being intimate and them exchanging bodily fluids. She's also getting superhero powers. And there's just a lot of chit chat and build up about all of them training for this big moment and having a good time. And it's the same thing in chapter 24 from Braxton's POV. She's testing her abilities to camouflage, and he's trying to track her with all these different things to make sure that she can stay safe and in case things go sideways, that she'll be able to hide from whoever she needs to hide from. And they spar a little, and then it ends with them inevitably doing it after the fact, after they have this grand chase. We go into chapter 25, and it's from Dominic Carusi's point of view. This is his business partner, and it's told in third person. Looking out of the floor-to-ceiling office window of his Boston headquarters, Dominic rolls his shoulders back and sighs. His wife, Abby, asks him at least once a year if he'll ever retire. They've already donated more than half of their net worth to charities and still rank as the wealthiest family in the world. Don't they have too much? And this is just him talking to his security about how they're going to get all of the Inkwell people in a room together, and how it's a big threat, and they can't believe that this happened, and the strings that they had to pull, and the money and the conversations that they had, and this is the type of organization that not even the president gets briefed on. And how are we going to get all this money and all these brains together? And the plan is to get them all in this bunker together and convince them that I know their secret and it's futile to hide anymore, and that I'm going to pay him to work for me so we can take over the world. Because he's rich enough to do that, I guess, for world domination or something. But don't worry, he doesn't actually want world domination. That's just the vibe that he gives. He's a good man that's just trying to set the world straight. Okay. So, chapter 26. Location is somewhere beneath the desert of Arizona, and we get some perspectives from some of the various doctors that work at Inkwell, the different professors, all talking about how they've gathered here, and it's all the, the lifers that have spent their entire time working on the program. And man, I can't believe that this Carosi Dante, who, did I say his name? I don't care. This real rich guy's getting us all together. This is crazy. This is our chance to leave, or Oh, we can never leave. You know how Inkwell thinks of people that leave. They make jokes because the cutlery says that it's from 1945, and they're like using it and cracking jokes about like, the detail that went into Project Inkwell inception and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, as they're eating dinner, there's a flash of energy from the knife and she drops it to the ground. All around the room, there are bursts of light. What's going on? One of the scientists asks in a high, nervous tone. A cold chill settles over Valerie, the female who was talking a minute ago, when she sees men in vintage military uniforms popping up all over the room. I don't know, but I have a feeling we're not going to like it. Cut to chapter 27 from Braxton's POV. It's Christmas time, and he's at the campground with his whole family and Lauren, and everyone's having a grand old time, and he proposes to Lauren and she accepts, and they're gonna get married and live happily ever after. And Ashley's there and her twin brother Ryan. Braxton flew Ryan in from wherever the hell he was, flew him in, and after she accepts the proposal, Ashley and Ryan approach Braxton and they say, hey, I know we're in our 20s and this might sound a little hokey, but can we call you Dad? You've been in our life more than our dad ever was. And that chapter ends with finding out that like Dominic was giving all the money to help fund like a rehabilitation facility for the World War II soldiers. And then our very final chapter is Dominic had sent all of the soldiers and their partners, so like Mercedes, Jack, Hugh, Cheryl, Ashley, not Ashley, she's at this thing, but like, and all the other ones that like Franklin, Pete, Elliot, who else did we meet? All the guys, sent them off to this little island off the coast of Italy to get a little vacation in, to get some little chill time in. Dominic shows up on the beach and he says, hey, I'm glad you guys are here. This is awesome. Make sure you stay in line. Don't want you guys to be taken advantage of or anybody to use your powers for evil. So just stay on my good side and I'll stay on yours and we can work together. I won't ask you to do anything bad as long as you don't make me. Says, what the hell? Jack's like, is that a threat? And Dominic says, it won't be as long as we stay cool. And we end on this like really, really ominous note. But it's great because they have a rehabilitation facility. They'll have some matchmaking. They'll find some love. They'll get some help for their PTSD. They'll have all of this funding from these billionaires to help them like cope with the world. And Project Inkwell has come to an end and everybody's found love and she's off with Braxton and everything's good. And our silverware cinematic universe comes to an end. But Dominic, the reason that he had 2 chapters of his own at the very end there is because that goes into a series that Ruth Cardello has written. Read more about Dominic Carusi in Made for the Billionaire. And then there's an excerpt if you wanted to read this other book that she's been writing or this other series for her billionaire romances, because I guess that's what she like traditionally writes. And that's a lighthearted utensil romance series. It has come to an end. The Super Soldiers. I feel like it has been a fever dream. I feel like I have just completely imagined this entire like 600 pages of material that I have consumed. Probably more than that actually. That I have consumed over the last 3 weeks. This has been a crazy ride. I know this was such a quick summary today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I don't know what to do now. Now we got to go back to reading bad stuff. This was such like a weird break, a weird fun break from everything. So, I think I'm going to do a Colleen Hoover. I think I'm not going to do Regretting You by Colleen Hoover since it got released. The movie trailer for that got released because I guess we're just handing out movies to this woman. So I'll be doing Regretting You by Colleen Hoover this Thursday. So look forward to that. And if you have any book recommendations, I have the link in the description box below to a Google form if you want to throw some ideas around. Also in the description box is a link to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's easier for you to listen over there. And the gaming channel. If you want some extra fun content, watch me flirt with utensils. I tried to flirt with silverware in this game earlier this week. So if you want to check out that video or that channel or whatever, that's down there too. Thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I'm having a great time. I hope you are as well. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.